Welcome again, everyone. Here we are, last speaker series this year. Oh, it's so sad. Anyway, uh, pardon me? Yeah, that's right. We saved the best to last, right? And welcome everyone on Zoom as well. It is with great appreciation that we, the residents of Protection Island, acknowledge this land as the unceded territory of the Nanaimo First Nation and of their legacy throughout the island. Thanks, Emily. Emily's back from her big trip now, and she's very rested and ready to get right into it. Thanks, Peter and Naomi for setting up the chairs, and Marlene for helping in the kitchen. She's amazing. Okay, so this talk is being recorded, so you'll be able to get it later. Emily will let us know in a day or two when it's available. Questions at the end, please, for Zoomers, and use the chat box if you can, or raise your hand if you really have a pressing issue. Mute yourself until the end, otherwise. Baked goods today are provided by Nikki. Donations are going to go to the library today. That is Joe's choice. 2 weeks ago, we raised another $195 for the Antler Swamp Restoration Group. So that's really good. Yeah, we're really getting lots of money there. Okay, now, okay. Joe sent me a whole lot of information, and I have a whole lot of information, so I'm combining the two. Meet Joseph, everyone. Now, he says, the man who traded palm trees for a puffy jacket at age 18, swapping sunny Puerto Vallarta, where he was born, for what he hoped was the warmest corner in Canada, Victoria. He says, spoiler alert, it's not actually that warm. At UVic, he dove into psychology, publishing research on visual perception in the Journal of Vision Sciences and presenting his research on the stage at TEDx Victoria. When he wasn't studying, he was stirring the pot in student politics, organizing a workers' strike, and adding Supreme Court precedent to his troublemaking resume. Joseph then dropped out to launch Cogniglab, a digital health platform that went international, earning him one of Canada's first startup visas. It was an official government announcement. His company teamed up with the Mayo Clinic before he pivoted into cybersecurity, where he's led various cybersecurity functions at Hootsuite, Salesforce, and now Instacart. Now, I want to just go back a tiny bit because Joe told me this really interesting stuff as well. So after Cogniglab, is that right? Okay. Joe then decided he wanted to gain more experience in the field. So he went to work for Hootsuite. This is a very successful Canadian social media company that manages accounts for the White House, the FBI, and the Canadian government. This was 10 years ago when Russia was trying to influence the American elections. Joe said at that point, somehow I got sucked into cybersecurity. Joe was on the lead security team that helped protect those accounts. So that's pretty interesting. So now, one little bit more. In his free time, you'll find him sailing the Gulf Islands in a CNC 35-foot. First mate Knox, a black Belgian Malinois, who's just as salty as the sea, he says. Joseph moved to Protection in 2024 and joined Station 7 to get fit on this introduction here. But in fact, he told me it was to lose weight and make friends. But the lose weight aspect is not working out as planned, he says. Due to all the great cakes Brenda bakes for their Tuesday get together. Please welcome Joseph Barrios. Okay.
Well, I must say, ever since I was a little boy, it was my dream to come speak at Protection Island, and I'm happy to realize that today. And before I get going, I want to have a little disclaimer, and that's just I'm working in the cybersecurity field. I am the privacy engineering manager for Instacart, among other things. And I'm also part of Station 7, as mentioned. So I want to make sure that it's understood that everything I say here is my opinion and not that of my employer or anything like that, right? I don't think hackers are cool. I don't think pirates are cool. They're both criminals, but for this occasion, we're going to make it a little bit more fun, and we're going to talk about them in a fun way. Cool. So one of the things that I wanted to do in this talk, it was basically just to, when I moved to this island, was to kind of like learn about pirates more, right? I don't think I would have fit in if I don't know anything about pirates. So that's what kind of like drove this talk. So that's what I've been doing. I probably have less expertise on pirates than most of you. So you can correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. But what I do want to do is kind of like link them to hackers because they actually have surprising ways in which they operate that are very similar, almost identical. And there's also very surprising ways on how they're different. And at the very end of the talk, I'm going to give you two kind of like takeaways on how you can protect yourself in the cybersecurity world. They're going to be very basic pieces of advice. All right. So let's make sure everybody is awake first. So this is a manifesto. The rich vilify us. They rob the poor under the cover of law. We rob the rich under the protection of our own courage. Who do you think said that? A hacker or a pirate?
Pirate.
Maybe raise your hand if you think pirate. Okay. And now think raise your hand if you think hacker. Double hacker. Yeah. It was actually a pirate. Yeah. But we do have a hacker manifesto too. So we'll learn about the manifesto and all that, but you know, it has a very rebellious aspect to it, which is very similar to pirates. This is our world now. We exist without nationality, and you call us criminals. Yes, I am a criminal, but my crime is that of curiosity. That's how they started. Obviously, it's evolved a little bit. One thing that they have in common is their operations. They actually run a very tight ship and is very similar. And one of the more, let me just get rid of this, more salient points. I'm going to try to close this and hopefully it'll have an impact here. Okay, good. There's no central authority, which actually makes them very difficult to fight, right? So there is no pirate king. Same with hackers. There's no precedent of hackers. Yeah, they all have captains, but they're organized as a collective that is independent of other pirates, right? Maybe they're on their own ship, but they're very loosely collaborating with others, which makes it very difficult to fight, right? Because you can take out a captain, but another one will go up. You can take out a ship, but there'll be 4 more that come out of it. The same thing happens with hackers, right? They're a collective. You can take a few of them, but they always kind of rise. And so basically, they're going to be here because they're not. They're an idea, right? And you can't fight ideas. Same with hackers. They're an idea, and you can't really get rid of ideas. Another thing that they also have in common is they both make their money with vulnerabilities, right? The nature of pirates is that you're fighting folks that are much better equipped, that have much bigger ships and much bigger canyons than you do, right? So you have to, which is asymmetric warfare, right? It's like, as a little guy, how do I make sure that I get what I want from that big guy without getting killed? So they developed a ton of strategies that we'll talk about. Actually, I have a few here. One of them, for example, is they were one of the few early folks that did night raids in the Navy or at night. They used no lanterns, and sometimes they would do it without a full moon, so like very little thing. They would develop deep knowledge of the ports before they did the attack, and then they would make it in a way where they would actually protect their ships by shallow reefs, right? So they would hide behind a shallow reef, so if they came after them, the ships would kind of get grounded. So they're very strategic in that sense. And hackers do the exact same thing. In fact, we actually also call so web applications, computers, they have ports, much like regular ports here. And hackers will actually do scans of these ports and then identify vulnerabilities that those ports may have. So for example, in a web application, we have port 80, like you name them. And then you can actually go in and ask questions of port 80 and then port 80 will talk to you because it's a protocol, right? And then sometimes you ask enough questions that you realize that there's actually a vulnerability in that port. You'll be like, oh, that's good. I'll remember that and I'll come back to it. And then sometimes you bring your friends and you attack port 80 and then you get into the application that way. So you do a lot of reconnaissance, and it's extremely methodical too. Much like pirates, if you identify a vulnerability, you don't immediately exploit it. You actually wait, you hide, and hackers are the exact same way. They'll wait, they'll attack when it's most convenient, and the timing of the attack is usually at night, much like pirates. A lot of the hackers will actually exploit holidays because they know that companies and people are going to be distracted doing other things, and big events like the Super Bowl, right? Because if you're a security team, you're a few beers deep, you're looking at this thing, you're having fun, and all of a sudden you realize you're getting attacked. You're probably not going to respond that well, right? Or Christmas too, right? And this is methodical. They actually do this on purpose. Like you can see the spike of attacks in Christmas and all those events. Hackers also rely a lot on oops, I went back. No, I did. Okay, pseudonymity. So obviously, they want to build a reputation without being able to trace for prosecution, right? And the reason they do that is there's various factors to that, but a lot of it is because they actually want to avoid a fight. So folks like Captain Morgan and those guys, they developed a persona that was aggressive, that there were rumors that they did such horrible things. Half of it may not even be true. But the reason they kind of want to develop that persona is because at the bottom of it, they're entrepreneurs, they're merchants, right? If they can avoid a fight, they'll avoid it. And the best way to avoid a fight is to get the other person to not want to fight. So they had actually the flags they would raise. When they were in the attack mode, they would raise the Jolly Ranger flag, the black one with the skull bones, and that basically meant like if you resist, we're really gonna kill you. And then they actually had a second flag, which is a red one, which is by the way where the term red flag comes from. They would raise the red flag, and that meant like if you put any resistance, we're gonna sink your boat. We're just gonna go all out. And the reason they did that is just to make sure that you were like, okay, hands up, and here's a loot. Hackers are the same too. You can actually see Anonymous, which is this very famous collective of hackers, and they will go and put videos often. They actually did somewhat recently about like Elon Musk. They're like, hey Elon, if you do this, we're gonna make sure that you get attacked. And sometimes it works and they back off. Sometimes it doesn't work. I don't think Elon Musk actually backed off, and his company did get attacked. X actually went down a couple weeks ago because of this hacker attack, right? And while Elon Musk and those folks may not be super intimidating, if this happened to a smaller company, you really think twice, because this will get in your way of getting revenue, right? If your site is not working, that means you can't process orders. That means you cannot get revenue in. That means you can't pay employees. So that's part of it. Oh, another thing that the hackers do that is kind of interesting too is they'll actually develop completely fake personas online. So you have like this Russian hacker, but they'll create a LinkedIn persona, and this LinkedIn persona is this very beautiful young girl, right? And then they'll reach out to folks, get accepted. You've probably seen them on your social media. You get added by like random, very good-looking people sometimes. No, well, it'll happen. And so you let them in with they're actually completely fake profiles. And so what they'll do is they'll start scanning you for vulnerabilities, right? You're more likely to say yes to a pretty girl or a pretty boy, or than otherwise. Okay, so let's talk about the tactics. So one of the things that they will do when pirates want to attack is they actually hide in mangrove forests, and they'll actually also create a bunch of false documents to go into port and be able to say like, oh yeah, I'm a British Navy officer and I'm here with my crew. A lot of them were actually former Navy officers. That's a whole nother story, but the same thing happens with hackers. Hackers actually will break into systems and just sit there for years. So by the time you detect the hacker, it's actually usually already too late. And so what they do is they get into the system, they'll get into your computer, they won't do anything. They literally won't steal your money, they won't read your emails, none of that. And then they have a very methodical way to then look for tripwires. Because Windows systems, Mac systems, they all have tripwires that they put in computers that will kind of like alert that there's somebody in there. And very sophisticated hackers, they're like pirates, they're very measured. They don't want to go running around as soon as they get into the system. Uh, so what they'll do is they'll methodically look at every corner, every window, and see if there's tripwires, and then start disconnecting the tripwires slowly. And that, for sophisticated attackers, that actually takes years. Obviously, we're talking about like folks that would really want to target at the end. So, like hackers that are targeting like critical infrastructure, like something that is really worth, or a bank. Um, and so basically, once they do trip some wire, they're basically already out the door with a bunch of money bags, much like pirates. And sometimes you don't detect them at all. Like and this happens a lot in companies, right? You look at your bank statement, there's $1 million missing. You're like, what the hell happened to that money? They look back, and the logs, or the records that keep that money, they've been deleted because they didn't have enough controls, and that's it. Then you pick up your phone, you call your insurance company. The insurance company will force you to do certain standards, and they'll send people in, we're called forensic researchers, to kind of like try to piece it back together. But I think 80% of crimes in cyberspace just never get detected, never get reported, never get prosecuted. Probably even more. Yeah. Another thing too is, well, I'll talk about that one a little later. Cool. Yeah. So like I was saying, in terms of surprise, um, because of asymmetric warfare, you don't want to announce yourself before you attack the vessel, right? So you usually go on a false flag. So you raise a British flag that allows you to get closer. And once you're close enough for attack, then you swap flags. Same thing happens with hackers. They heavily rely on false flags, right? Those spammers that you get, or like those calls. It's like, hey, I have $1 million that I want to give you because I'm this prince or whatever. Um, um, they, yeah, I actually went ahead in my talk and I forgot about that. They'll also impersonate systems. So a lot of companies have a bunch of systems. Like Facebook will have a system for identity that will allow you to log in, or a system for transferring money. And so what they will do is they will actually create a little app or system, and then they have that system talk to the companies. And you'd be surprised how many companies don't have enough controls, and they'll actually talk back to the impersonated system. So the system will be like, "Hey, I'm System A. Remember me from before?" And then the system will be like, "Yeah, of course. I know System A. Here is the banking information." That's actually like extremely common. Uh, uh, yeah. And one thing that I actually really liked about Pirates that I thought was kind of fun here too is they heavily relied on pubs. So they So much like the dinghy dock, they would actually go into the pubs, obviously, to have fun and whatnot, but they would also plant folks in pubs to get information. Uh, uh, they'll also spread misinformation in the pubs, like rumors. So if they knew there was like a British, whatever battalion there or whatever, they would go in and be like, oh, you know what we've been hearing, Route B over there is crowded with pirates. You should really take Route A. And in the background, they'll actually set up, an ambush for Route A. So they will use this information to be able to route decisions of folks, and hackers do that brilliantly. So one of the things that hackers will do in terms of deception is they'll actually attack a company with a fake attack to hide a real attack that is actually happening in the back. And that happens usually a lot in like holidays. So you're like, you're a security team, and all of a sudden you get this attack, which is very common and not very sophisticated, which is you get a bunch of requests just coming in your way. So imagine you have a bunch of people coming in and asking you to do something, and you get like thousands of them. So your systems are like trying to process all this information that is just fake traffic while somebody's sneaking up on the back. And then the security team is trying to like, figure out how to block all these folks while the attack is happening in the background. Then they conduct it, they finish it, they go away with the $1 million, and the security team will be like, okay, we managed to fend this attack off. Yay, you celebrate, and then you realize, you look back, the money is gone. You're like, and that also happens a ton, especially for like very sophisticated actors that have like many resources, like state actors, which we'll talk shortly. And the yeah, the motivation of pirates, and this kind of goes to the manifesto that they were talking about. I think the piracy started in a good way. Most of them, like the golden age of pirates, started because they were all a bunch of Navy folks, and they had developed skills that were like basically killing folks and navigating and sailing. And then the wars kind of stopped, and so they found themselves unemployed, right? And so what do you do when you have all those skills and you're not making money? Well, you kind of use those skills, and that's how piracy really kind of became its golden age. That did not happen with hackers. Hackers really don't have an excuse. Hackers tend to be very well-educated folks, right? Like you have to be able to understand computers very well to be able to hack. So it's a little bit more inexcusable in the hacker world because you definitely have alternative means to provide for your family, right? You're not stuck in a hard place like pirates were back in the day. That said, not all pirates were terrible. They also would actually be guns for hire. So this is the letters of marque. They would actually work with whomever paid them, and sometimes the government would pay them to go fight other governments. So that's a letter of marque is basically a letter that the government gives you that allows you to plunder other governments, and they will happily do it, even with enemy Navy folks. We're seeing the same thing happen with hackers too, which is actually really scary. So hackers tended to be like very curious folks that maybe took it a little too far. Then we started seeing folks starting to profit off, retirees and people without a lot of like technical knowledge. And now we're seeing a third generation of hackers that is extremely well organized and is actually controlled by governments, which is state-sponsored actors. So much like the letters of marque, governments will actually do two strategies to get hackers. One is they will arrest them and then say, you're going to go to jail. I'm going to put you in this hole for 20 years, or you're going to help me hack X country or X system. And so that's what they do. Actually, one of the most famous hackers, that's how they got him. They're going to throw him for 20, 30 years. And I think he still works at the FBI. A pretty good deal. The other way they actually get them is through their military. So militaries are developing, like in the States, it's called cyber commands. The Russians and the Chinese also have a few of them. And you actually have 9 to 5 hackers that are sponsored by the government and have zero regulations or laws, right? Because they're attacking a foreign enemy. So the Russians are spectacularly good at doing this, and so are the Chinese, and obviously the Canadians and the Americans are actually pretty good too. And so what they do is they will go in to, and using the tools that we talked about, they will try to infiltrate critical infrastructure in other countries, right? So we're talking hospitals, we're talking power grids, we're talking water filtration systems. They won't actually attack at all. They'll start taking out the tripwires and they'll start setting up bombs, but without exploding them. And the Russians and the Canadians and the Americans will do this. Like everybody does it. And the Americans are actually very good at it too. Canadians as well. We're probably better than them, I think. And so, but the problem here is that there will be a trigger at some point, right? If there is an escalation of that conflict, and you see this in Ukraine a lot, you're gonna see power plants all of a sudden stop operating, which is exactly what happened in Ukraine, right? In Ukraine, they shut down the power in the middle of the winter. Lots of people died. In Ukraine, they shut down the power to hospitals. Lots of folks died, right? In Ukraine, they shut down, the Russians shut down power water plants. Nobody could get water. People had to like leave, evacuate. So there's this entirely new dimension that is coming out of this. That is a little scary, I think. Um,
Unseen.
yeah, it's unseen, and it will happen. And the other thing that's a little dangerous about cyber warfare is that it's an easy option. And the reason it's easy, and the reason the Russians and the Chinese and we do it, is because there's no attribution. Meaning, when the power plant goes down, it's very hard to be able to prove that it was the Russians or the Chinese or the Canadians, right? So there is no escalation of that conflict for the most part. So it's an easy way of kind of like warning countries easily and without escalating conflict. The problem with that is that when you use those weapons, because they are weapons, the country that is on the receiving end will eventually go through their systems and find out how those bombs were set up and how those tripwires were taken out, and they learn from it because you can't take it away with you, and then they actually apply it against you, right? So it's a constant arms race that we're not paying a lot of attention to. Okay, moving away from that, the other commonality too is pirates were you eat what you can kill, or you no pray no pay, commission based. Hackers are very much the same, except for the state-sponsored hackers. So you have very entrepreneurial, very motivated and driven folks without a salary. And one of the aspects that made it really interesting to be non-salaried or to be commissioned to like distribute the bounty is that you had an incentive to be democratic, right? Because you would go, you grab a bunch of loot, and then you wanted to make sure that everybody got paid, right? Because that's the only source of payment that you would have. So you see pirates being a little bit more democratic and inclusive than the rest of folks of their time. They also allowed people from different races. And that's not to say they weren't racist, because they would also go and loot and get slaves, right, and sell slaves. And so they weren't good people. But they were a lot more inclusive because they wanted diversified skill sets, because the more diversified skill sets you had, the more likely you were to get loot. And the more likely to get loot, that means everybody gets paid. The other thing, oh, and by the way, there was also female pirates. One of my favorites, Annie Bonny. She is probably she's one of two really famous pirates, and she was not hiding it. You see like a lot of stories like Mulan and whatnot, where they're trying to hide themselves. She wasn't. And she would fight. She survived all her fights. She would loot. And there's actually famous saying, and she was obviously quite a good fighter. And one time there was some written notes about her that she was fighting with another pirate on the deck of this boat while they were getting attacked, I think by other pirates. And I guess the reputation of the folks attacking them was so great that a lot of the pirates actually went and hid in the boat, in the floor of the boat. And eventually they got killed. And one of her quotes is like, "Well, if they would have fought like men, they wouldn't have died," or something like that. And she led the battle. Unfortunately, she did get caught, and she was trialed, and she was found guilty, and they were going to hang her. But she was really smart, because if you're a pirate, you kind of have to be pretty smart. And she's like, "Well, I would love to be hanged tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm pregnant, and according to your law, you can't hang me because I'm pregnant." They're like, "Okay, yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait." And next thing you know, she disappeared. And we don't know what happened to her. So she probably is enjoying some gold in some Caribbean island. Another interesting thing about this, the pirates, insurance. They're actually one of the earlier examples of insurance. So this collective, when you got hurt in battle, you'd actually get more of the bounty than the rest of the folks, proportional. So if you lost your eye, if you lost your leg, you would get supported by the rest of the team. And that's why a lot of pirates would, still work and survive, even if they were, had injuries that would otherwise render them not as efficient. Which we could learn something from that. The Navy, they didn't do that too well. Hackers are the same way. Like, you get paid based on what you can do. Hackers have a little bit of a different incentive. They don't know each other for the most part. You never know another hacker. If you're in a hacker collective, 90% of the time you don't actually know the other hackers. You just know them by monikers online. right? But you establish things in a way where it's very hard to track. So you have like Bitcoin, which will be the equivalent of gold. It's not traceable. Bitcoin is kind of like a, like a bill will have a serial number. A gold coin, you can melt it and turn it into whatever else and then sell it, and nobody will know it was a gold coin. They do the same thing. It's called Bitcoin. They put all their profits into that thing, and they're relatively untraceable. And they're also very egalitarian. Hackers are actually very inclusive. The anonymity of being a hacker means that you can be anything, anyone, any place, with any hair color, with whatever you want. And it's really, truly a meritocracy, right? Like you excel based on your results and nothing else. And you actually see that there's a lot of female hackers too. Yeah, they're not as much as male hackers, but I think it's because they're smarter, so they never get caught. Um, but um, okay, and here's where pirates kind of get left in the wake, because pirates at their peak, they were ferocious, but they never really kind of established dominance across the world. It was mostly located in the Caribbean or parts of Africa. Cybercrime is actually a huge economy. So this year, cybercrime will cost the world about 10.5 trillion. If that was a country, it would be the third largest country in terms of economy, just behind the US and China. So the incentive here is absolutely massive, right? And at the very top of that, banks, large American corporations, and governments. So you can imagine the incentive people have to work on this, right? So it's not going to go away. At the peak of piracy in modern day, it was about 25 billion. So pirates, and it's like an order of magnitude different. And the other thing too that is different, pirates, they were bounded by the ocean, right? That was kind of like their medium. They stayed in their medium. They couldn't escape their medium. Cyber attacks and hackers have actually started to cross their medium. So when you think about hackers, you think the medium is okay, computers, right? Like yeah, they're maybe really sophisticated and blah blah blah, but they're stuck in a computer, right? They're talking about no numbers and information. That's not the case anymore. In 2010, this is probably the most famous example, but in 2010, the Iranian nuclear power plant completely disconnected from the internet, and a very secure facility started basically, I won't go into the details, but basically like parts of it started exploding. And they couldn't figure out why. The president of Iran actually ended up executing a lot of the nuclear scientists, thinking that they were sabotaging this plant because it's like air gapped. And so this explosion's going on. Anyway, eventually security researchers found that it was a weapon that we believe was created by the US and Israel. And what this weapon did is it kind of like bridged or leaped the bound of the cyberspace. So what it would do is it would go into the power plant controllers. It would display in the screens, everything is good, everything is fine. And in the background, it would trip the security controls and make things spin faster and faster and faster than they should, which eventually caused them to explode. Right. So now you're having weapons from cyberspace realizing into actual explosions in the real world. And that was what, 15 years ago, right? Yeah, the amount of sophistication in that end is mind-blowing. Okay, so that's kind of like, that's cybersecurity as a whole, but like, okay, what can I do about it? Like, if you first thing is, if you have a nation state after you, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, nobody can do anything about it at all. But luckily, most of you are probably not going to be prosecuted by the Russians or anything like that. So there's one thing you can do, and I sincerely and dearly think that everybody should, and this is the simplest way to keep you safe, is buy a password manager. That's it. Just a password manager. And I'll explain why. Because you probably get this advice all the time. You're like, Why? So the way hackers operate is you have one collective of hackers, right, doing their thing, and they will eventually break into a website. Every website will get breached at some point or another. If the website they breached didn't secure your password well, and most of them don't secure your password well, they'll grab that database and they won't actually do anything with it. That's kind of like where their thing ends, and then they'll hand it off to other pirates, other hackers, and they'll sell it. So they'll go on forums online and be like, "Hey, I hacked this website. I have a list of 10,000 users, and I have their emails and their passwords. Who wants them?" And then other hackers will bid on that. Eventually, it gets sold to the highest bidder. This is all happening in the dark web. And what the highest bidder will do is we'll create a script, something that can automate this. But basically, what they will do is they will grab your email and your password that is only for that one website that got hacked, and they'll go in and try it on everything. They'll go in and try it on Facebook. They'll go in and try it on Instagram. They'll go in and try it in your bank, right? And if your password is the same across all of them, they're going to get into everything, right? And that's actually one of the most common ways people get hacked, right? So when you get an attack and somebody logs into your Facebook, it doesn't necessarily mean that they hacked your Facebook. It means that they hacked some random app that you don't even remember signing up 10 years ago, but they use that password to get into Facebook. So how does a password manager solve that? So basically, you only remember one password, which gives you access to the password manager. And then you ask the password manager to create passwords and remember them for you. I don't know my password to Facebook. Yeah. I don't know my password to my Wi-Fi, whatever. Yeah. And I like to keep it that way, right? And so if let's say my Facebook does get hacked, then they won't be able to try that attack anywhere else, right? So it'll be very isolated to that specific place. So really the best thing you can do, it costs $8 a month, and it's going to save you so much time. You can remember one password, be super secure, and yeah, that's it. And it's easy to set up too. And my personal recommendation is 1Password. That's what I use. And the reason I like them is because it's very easy to use, and it's also Canadian. So it's one of the best Canadian companies in terms of tech.
So you're in it, and then what?
Do I want to share? No. This is great. Yeah, from now on, I'm basically almost done. So you can ask questions. I wanted this to be interactive. I'm just thinking if I want to share this or probably don't want to share this. just because it's recorded. So basically it's an application. So you know how you like open like Chrome or your email, and that's like a little icon application. Okay, so the password manager is the exact same thing. Let me see. 1Password is my favorite. Yeah, 1Password. Actually, do you mind if we stop recording and then I can show this? Yeah.
So will it automatically update all your accounts that you've got password?
Sure. Right? They don't go after the, Navy crown jewel. They go after the weakest. Or like when you're hiking, right? And there's a bear. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the person next to you. Cybersecurity the same way. As long as you're safer than, most folks, then you'll be fine. Cool. And oh yeah, and this is a little bit more forward-looking. You've seen in movies, right? When there's like two spies, and the one spy will come to like a coffee shop and be like, "Oh, as sure as I need my umbrella out there." It's like, "Oh yeah, it's usually raining in February," and that's how they recognize each other. And it's a common practice to like make sure that you're talking to the right person. You should do that with your family members and anybody that you trust. And the reason I say this because we're starting to see this a lot in corporations, like large corporations, where you're the CFO, right? And you get a face call and you pick it up. It comes from a legitimate number, the CEO, and you see the CEO, and the CEO is like, "Hey, I have an emergency. I need you to transfer $1 million to this bank account." And you can see him, you can hear him. He looks exactly like he would in real life. You'd be like, "Okay, well, I will, sir. Bye." Hang up, transfer money. Then the CEO calls you, what the hell do you do? It's like, well, I did exactly what you said I should do. It's like, no, I didn't say that. Then they go in and it's actually AI. AI is incredible. It can actually, it can generate people that look exactly like other people just from photos. It can generate voices that sound exactly like the person's voice just from recordings. So you cannot trust your voices anymore, except for, let's assume you get a call from your kid. It's like, hey, I'm in trouble. I need you to send me $200 because I forgot to pay my tuition or whatever. Then you could be like, okay, what do you do in a gale? And then the kid has to respond with what you told them to respond with. Oh, it's like, in this case, I just said like, oh, riff the jib and keep going, right? And that's how you know that person is really your son or your daughter, right? Because the attacker won't know how to respond to that, right? So in my family, we have code words. We're like, yeah, I can transfer you, just give us a code word. And if they can't answer it, then I'm like, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to see you in person for me to do this. Yeah.
In Potworth, and he's the one who knows a lot, and they because he had received calls and they took his voice and then the system and went in and took money.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it happens.
He got a call. Sometimes if I get a call and then I don't really say anything,
Yeah,
you know,
good call.
because they can record.
Yeah. And it's very likely that that's like some sort of either hacker group or foreign government trying to record voices, right? For all we know. Most often than not, it's just to see if you pick up, because then they just try any random numbers, and if you pick up, then they'll be like, okay, we can call that person. But anyway, so this is happening all the time in big corporations. Like this is not science fiction. This happens every other week. The technology's here. It'll start happening more and more as time goes by. So start thinking about code words with family members. And that's it. That's the two things that I have for you. And I'm happy to take questions and also if you need help with, security, or if you want to install 1Password or want to use a key and you don't know how, drop into my place anytime. Just maybe send me a text. I'll be happy to walk you through it. Yeah, let's make Protection Island a secure port.
So when you sign up on these websites or anything like that, and they say, okay, well, they want your cookies, and then they say, oh, you're going to take your data, and how much do you protect yourself when you go onto those websites?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. That's actually one of my jobs in Instacart. Is I manage the team that does what's called privacy engineering, and one of our tasks is to manage cookies and like that banner that shows, like really annoying banner. So I think it's safe. So, and the reason I say it's safe is three factors. One, if they're displaying those warnings to you, that means that they're complying with law. So like in Europe, they have GDPR law where you have to display this thing, right? They also are giving you the option to opt out, right? A malicious attacker wouldn't ask you; they would just track it, right? Now, what happens to that data? What is really that data? What, like those cookies that we hear about? So those cookies are basically trackers of your identity online. Some trackers, if you're logged in, can look at like your name, your email, what you shopped for last week, right? Some other, well, yeah, everything, yeah. And then the company can choose to share that information with partners, right? So like advertisers or.
So if they get hacked, they can hack your information.
They could, yeah. They definitely could. Now there's a great way to prevent that. Is one, you can opt out, of course, of that banner. And the second one that is a little less known to folks is you can actually, by law, you can request companies to delete your data. You can, yeah, you can.
You don't have that on the banner.
No, they kind of keep that tucked in. Yeah. So every company now has to have a way for customers to be able to delete their data. All you have to do is email either privacy@whatevercompany.com or security@whatevercompany.com. And then they have a certain amount of time to comply with that. And they actually provide you with a receipt. It's like, okay, yeah, we deleted your data. It's gone.
Facebook and all that.
Yeah, you can do it with Facebook. But here's the problem. It's really complex, right? Because there's a lot of that data bounces around so much. There's another application here, Cogni. I use this personally. I can even probably log into this one. I don't think it's gonna be anything wild in here. To see, I don't know that password at all. And it's usually how easy it is. Like, can you imagine like, oh, what was that password on? Okay, so this company, and I don't work for them. I'm not getting paid by either 1Password or Incogni, but I do use them. So what this company does is you give them your email. Say my email is joseph@gmail.com. And then you ask them, I want you to delete my data from anywhere you find it. And then they'll go in and they'll scan advertisement firms, companies, and they'll send requests on your behalf. Yeah, so you can see here. Yeah, but it's actually very reasonable. It's like, I can't remember, it's like $4 a month or something like that. Yeah. So you can see that this company, which I would have never heard of, I have no idea who they are. They've deleted my data. I will never be able to find them because it was probably, I signed up with this vendor, that vendor shared it with that vendor, right? But Cogni is able to find it and then say requests and then delete it for you. And they actually constantly monitor that. So that's how you can protect your data and identity.
We'll show them that when you want to sign up for things, you don't want to keep using the plus sign.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't know your email.
I'm happy to share it. So I actually had it in my talk and then I took it out because it's a little complicated. I didn't want to lose folks, but I'll do it. And yeah.
Because you want to sign up for some things, you want to put your email.
Yeah. So I'll link it to the example I had with the pirates. So pirates will sometimes realize that their plans were being leaked, and very astute captains, what they would do is they go to the pub, they sit around, and if they suspected, let's say 3 folks that they were leaking information, they would go to person number 1 and be like, hey, our ship is going to go on route A. It's like, great, route A. And then they will go and talk to the second person, our ship is going to go on route B. And then they will go to the third person, our ship is going to go on route 3 or C, right? And then they wouldn't actually sail through those routes. They would just send people and to see if there was like an ambush. And if there was an ambush on route B, be like, oh, that second person I talked to, that's the person leaking the secrets, right? And that's how people got hung back in the day. The same strategy you can use, but for realizing where you're getting your spam from. So when you sign up to a website, you usually sign up with, like, let's say joseph@gmail.com, right? So let's assume that I'm going to create a new account and let's say I'm going to sign up for Facebook. I can do Joseph. And then if I add a plus and then Facebook, I'll still get that email. That's a trick on emails. You can put a plus and whatever else you want in front of it, it gets ignored and you still get the email. So I can literally say Joseph at whatever. I'll still get that email. But that email will be sent with that flag. So now let's assume that I'm sitting at my computer, I'm getting a ton of spam. I'm like, where's the spam coming from? I take a look at where's it being sent and be like, oh, it's Joseph at Carfax, right? Be like, oh, Carfax probably got hacked and now they're spamming me, right? So you can keep unique emails. Yeah, no worries. It's a little bit more advanced. That's how I keep track of my spam. And the reason this is useful is because you can actually block it, right? You can't block things from sending it to joseph@gmail.com, but you can block joseph@carfax.com. And the reason, do you mind if I share?
Yeah.
The reason I was sharing that is because once you get attacked or spammed, it's very hard to stop all the flow. Like, yeah, right now there's an incident.
Every day.
So she's got to click through 400 emails, and you can't block it because you like they're all coming to the real account. But if they had like at Facebook, then you can just block that and still get all of your other emails.
Naomi Rillo plus at Gmail. Then when I get some things, how do I know that it's from them? Oh no, then I put the rule in saying Naomi Rillo plus, so anything that comes to that becomes spam.
Exactly, you just filter it. Yes, it'll be between whatever is real. Let's assume that your real email is Tim at whatever. Then you like do Tim plus, and then you can add whatever you want in there, and Tim will still get it. Yeah.
What's your recommendation on mass email accounts?
I use it. So I don't know if you noticed when I shared my 1Password. Yeah, fair enough. I use a unique email for every account I create. Yeah, I don't know if I would recommend this. Like the reason I do it is because I work in cybersecurity, so I am a target of things just because of the nature of my job. So I go over and above. But if you want to and you want to be super safe, I would. There's no reason not.
So, given Mozilla's fragility right now, are you concerned about their email masking service?
Yeah, I didn't catch your name.
John.
John. I like John.
One
I like what John is talking about. So right now, Mozilla, which is a Firefox, it's a web browser. They're very forward in terms of like their security and privacy. They've always been at the forefront. And recently they announced that they're not going to be so much at the forefront. So now they're starting to take on like a step back, potentially for money. The question is, should we be worried about it? Yes. If you're using it for privacy reasons, there's better browsers you can use. Yeah, so I would change browsers. Get a private browser, maybe a Tor browser, something like that. I actually so the browser itself isn't gonna make or break anything. So I use Chrome. I use it regularly for things that like for my work or for my personal account. If I'm, for example, doing something sensitive, like let's say that I'm researching an attack or researching somebody that hacked us or something like that that I don't want Google to know about, then I would use something similar to incognito. So you can open Chrome incognito, and it's supposed not to keep track of things, although Google did get caught recently because they were keeping track of it when they didn't. The one I use on my phone is called Firefox Trust, I think. Let me remember. It was a type of Firefox one, but it's very inconvenient. And the reason it's inconvenient is because of, it's called Firefox Focus. But I wouldn't recommend it. And the reason I wouldn't recommend it is because it makes it really hard to do your day-to-day life. So it won't remember any of your passwords. It won't remember the website that you visited 2 days ago. It literally, once you're done your query, it deletes everything. And that sounds very secure, but it's just very inconvenient. So if you don't have to do it, I wouldn't worry about it.
I don't know if other people know this. I'm sorry.
We can go like this way. So sorry.
Came through one of my email accounts. They got my password from the email, and then they got into town. And when I looked on my security, which is supposed to do on my email, somebody had been trying to log in for ages to my email. Like I could see 15 different tries from countries all over the world trying to get what was my old Hotmail account that I don't even use anymore. And then they got into my Amazon account, which I don't use anymore for other reasons. But and then they started to try and buy things on my Amazon account. That's basically what. But it was frightening, and you can look at your history on your security for your whatever email account and see who's trying to get in, and it's been fail, but then eventually.
So one interesting thing about that is that that probably was 15 different people.
Right.
And so what happened is exactly what we were described earlier, where one hacker got into a database, probably sold it to 15 people, right? And then those 15 people were trying to, use that email password combination on your accounts. And then eventually, maybe you did use that same password in Amazon. They eventually got into Amazon and start ordering stuff. So that's why 1Password is so important here, because they wouldn't have been able to get into Amazon because the Amazon password would have been unique. So that 1Password would have stopped that attacking. Oh, it wouldn't. I mean, the attack would have happened anyway, but they wouldn't have been able to log into Amazon. Yeah.
My Facebook has been hacked several times, and my family are saying you should not be on Facebook. What is your feeling about that?
No, I think you should be on Facebook if you want to be on Facebook. Yeah. So the first one is going to be unique passwords. So most likely hacking Facebook is very difficult. They have incredibly good security teams and engineers, So they probably didn't hack Facebook. They probably hacked some other vendor and then they just reused that password on Facebook, right? Getting to Facebook is very difficult. So that's probably what happened. So 1Password would probably stop that, right? Because then you would just have a unique
So
email.
I keep changing my password.
No,
One pass.
the password manager. Yeah, so if you change your password with the password manager that I showed, and I'm happy to like talk more about it, like the details of that, then that will stop hackers from coming in.
Most people, they've been hacked on Facebook, haven't been hacked.
It certainly
They've
haven't.
copied a profile, they've taken your
Yeah,
picture,
your picture.
created, because there's so many John Smiths,
Yeah.
right? So they've taken your name and your picture, created a new profile. And then they're sending messages that people are thinking that it's coming from
Right,
you.
yeah,
It's
I
a
think
fake
that's
profile.
what.
Yeah, the reason they do that too is you may not be a super interesting target for those hackers, right? But the reason they do it is because they may be interested in somebody in your network. And so by pretending to be you, they're more likely to get an invitation or accept it or transfer money or whatever. So even if you don't think like, oh, what do I have to hide? What do I have? Like, I don't have nothing in the bank. I was like, yeah, but it's not about you only. It's about everybody else around you as well.
Presentation is great, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you give us a really simple explanation of how the dark web works?
Sure. Yeah.
Simple.
Um, uh, so the internet is basically computers talking to each other, right? So one computer talks to another computer and they exchange information, right? You just happen to be in one of the computers and Facebook is actually in another computer and you just talk to it. Those are very well regulated. There's a lot of laws, like that's why you get those banners that you have to comply with. So there's GDPR, there's FOIPA, there's a ton of regulations, and they're also very closely monitored. The dark web steers a little bit away from that, where those servers or those computers, they're not actually owned by any individual person. Unlike, like for example, for Facebook, they actually have, Facebook has to be like, this is my server, and they put a certificate and be like, I own this server, I've owned it since this time. And otherwise it can't actually talk to other computers. In the dark web, that's not the case. So anybody that goes and takes part of the web of this thing owns a little bit of piece of that server, like a little piece of that computer. So in that sense, it's distributed. So because it's kind of like pirates, like because nobody owns that computer, you can't take it down, right? And there's a lot of things you can do and share and sell in there that you wouldn't have access otherwise. And the way you access it is also a little different. And the internet is open. Anybody go with a web browser can just go in. To access the dark web, you need to do like a special type of connection to that computer. Yeah. And so, and that connection makes it difficult to trace who's doing what. No, it's all open source. Yeah.
Pirates would sell a 64th of a ship, which was a legitimate achievement.
Bingo.
But sometimes those are pirate ships. So you buy a 64th of silver, essentially.
Exactly.
And the binary numbers happen to work out.
Yeah, and they also change the unlike ships in the digital world. You can change your ownership of ships really quickly, right? So I own this ship for 5 seconds, and I'm gonna go and I sell that, and I go own this ship for 20 seconds, and then I go. So you're like jumping across constantly. So it's very difficult to be able to trace, prosecute, and that's why it's like a haven for criminal activity. Yeah.
Given that a lot of the big tech, American big tech, is now aligning with Trump, are you worried about any of your data on American servers? Would you, like 1Pass is on a Canadian server, I assume?
Yep.
Would you recommend that if people try and look for services, apps, programs that are not centered in the States?
Yeah, so there's a few aspects on that. So personally, I'm not worried. And the reason I'm not worried is that I used to work for like large American companies as a security person. So I got to like open the hood and see what's in there. And a lot of the large Canadian American companies, they don't actually store your data like in plain text. It's not like my data wouldn't be like a page you can read that they just leave, let's say on their system. They actually, they jarble it. They encrypt, it's called encrypted. So they jarbled your information. So if anybody try to access it, all they will see is just a bunch of jarble. So it doesn't, it's not readable, none of that. So from a security perspective, if let's say that the Canadian government or the American government wanted to like see it, most of the time they can't even see it because the company itself cannot see it. So Apple, that's why I love Apple. Apple is one of those companies where Apple does not even have access to your data because it's actually encrypted and they don't have the key to be able to see it. Same with 1Password. That's why I also love 1Password because 1Password, when you sign up to 1Password, you have to provide a bunch of like different things, and then they use that information to basically garble, and all that to be able to unjarble it. All that lives in your head. They don't keep a copy of it. So even if a hacker got your data, they wouldn't be able to read it. So that's why I'm not.
As the American
Government,
government
yeah.
requiring to start changing the policy of.
Yeah. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. I'm keeping an eye on the privacy statements from Apple. So far, they're actually the best company, and you can actually verify that because they fight FISA courts all the time. So they'll fight the administration when the administration tries to do it. And they actually got clever enough that in some instances said like, we would love to give it to you, but we don't have it. Right? And that's actually a very clever way that a lot of companies are doing now. Is like, I don't have the keys. If I had the keys, I would love to open this door for you. But it's actually the only person that has the key is a user. So you're gonna have to go ask a user, right? So even if Apple wanted to comply, they cannot. And that was a very clever thing that Tim Cook did when he kind of saw that he was probably gonna lose that battle. Now, that's not to say that they may work some backdoors. They may get compelled in some ways to expose your data. But for the average citizen, it's probably very unlikely that will happen. Yeah.
What do you think about VPNs? Are they useful?
Huge.
Oh,
Yeah. So VPN is another thing. I actually have one right now happening. This is my VPN. Oh, you can see it. No, VPNs are not illegal at all. No, VPNs are actually completely legal and encouraged. So what a VPN will do is, let's say I wanted to talk to you, right? What normally happens is I have to ask you to tell me where she is so I can talk to her. So then you keep all that record of my interactions with her, right? A VPN, and so basically, if the government came or whomever or like a hacker and talked to you, then you can give them all the information that I relate to her. A VPN is a virtual private connection, so I can just bypass you entirely. I'd be like, I'll just talk to her directly. Yeah, so highly recommended. I think all of them are pretty good. The one I use is called NordVPN. But this one I don't really have a tremendously good reason for it. The only reason I do is because I use the business plan, which is a little more expensive, but because it's got features that I need, but you wouldn't care about. But yeah, this one I use. But really any of the ones that are here will probably be good enough. And VPN is important to use if you're in a shared Wi-Fi. At home, you probably don't need to. But if you're in a shared Wi-Fi, like if you're a coffee shop or if you're somewhere else, you definitely want to use VPN. And the reason for that is because when you connect to like the Starbucks website, you know how let's say you're my bank. It's like I want to talk to my bank, right? I have to talk to you first, and then you have to talk to the bank. Hackers, what they do is, let's assume that she's a hacker. They'll actually swap. So I'll be telling the hacker my credentials to my bank. So, but if I have a VPN, I can just talk directly to my bank.
Just a great guy, Chris.
Oh, yeah, okay. We were just in Cuba.
Oh yeah.
He's lost his voice.
We were just in Cuba and we couldn't phone our bank account or our bank account because we didn't have a VPN on, but our son had one. So it's worth having a VPN on your telephone so that you can actually use it in a place like Cuba.
100%. Yeah. So Cuba has a lot of embargo restrictions. So a lot of American and Canadian, mostly American, but some Canadian companies cannot do business with or in Cuba. So that means that if you're trying to connect to RBC and RBC says connection from Cuba, they're going to be like, nope, don't touch it. And so what you need to do, one of the things that the VPN will do is it'll allow you to pretend to be somewhere else. So you may be in Cuba and trying to talk to Rogers or whomever, but you can tell the VPN. You can tell the VPN, hey, I'm actually in Canada. So then your request to Rogers be like, oh, there's a person from Canada that wants to talk to you. Like, yeah, oh yeah, I'll chat with them. And it's also used in China, for example. China will restrict the usage of the internet to its citizens. So they won't let them search whatever they want. Like if you Google or if you search Tiananmen Square, nothing will show up. But if you use a VPN and you can pretend to be somewhere else, then the Chinese cannot block it because it's like, oh, I'm in Canada. Of course I can Google Tiananmen Square. So it's also a very good tool to escape censorship as well.
One thing now that we do is, one thing, I think of it, it's Wednesday in Vancouver, at a car, not a cyber attack, car accident, car went out at 8:30 in the morning. I'm not in a hotel, so I eat out.
Yep.
Every restaurant, every store in West Vancouver, or not West Vancouver, or Bay, was closed and shut down, but they couldn't operate, which I thought restaurants can operate. You have gas appliances, gas cooktops. But you don't have the computer system. Why can't they go back to paper and a calculator? Like, year 2000, the bank made it so to food. If you had a business, what are you going to do when all K2000, the year 2000?
Oh yeah, the Y2K, yeah.
Maybe you go, what are you going to do for backup? How are you going to operate still?
Mhm.
It seems like now, when power goes out, or cyber attack, and it happened up north of it, the Zebra, fiber optic cable, and it's Smithers, and everything went down. You couldn't get money out of the bank couldn't tell you what you had anyhow.
Yep.
And what's going to happen?
Chaos, complete chaos. It's gonna be bad. You can see it a little bit. I think that the canary in the coal mine is Ukraine. You can see how it's being utilized there, and it's just gonna be complete chaos. It's a weapon.
The bank be making businesses like that, all these businesses, they've lost the daily revenue, the staff already in.
Yeah,
You think the banks would make them have it back, go back to the calculator, go back to.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the thing is that hackers, especially sophisticated hackers like state actors that would execute an attack like that, they're so sophisticated that they would also bring down your all your backups. Maybe not pen and paper, but you can't really manage an ATM through pen and paper, right? So yeah, we're susceptible to it. It's gonna happen. It absolutely will happen at some point or another. And yeah, you still have to have a bunch of water, a bunch of cash. Maybe start stashing some coins, like gold coins, like pirates, and might come handy. Yeah, but it's definitely certainly very scary. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, I really appreciate you coming out. Yeah.
For a while, we used to get good messages with you.
Very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
And so much valuable.
Oh, good. I'm happy. Always have to talk cybersecurity.
Yeah.